We're going to be hearing from UN DESA. We're going to be hearing from my very own friend and colleague, Surabi of Climate Works. We're going to be hearing from CREA, the Global Solar Council, and Tsinghua University. So without further ado, I'm sure everybody is dying to hear what they have to say. I would like to welcome Minomu Takada, Department of Economic and Social Affairs from UN DESA, to come to the podium and start with opening remarks. I look forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome to the SDG Pavilion. Thank you very much. This is the 6th year in a row that we are at DESA organizing this SDG Pavilion. And, of course, the concept is very clear. Climate action matters for the life of the people, and the SDGs really are going to be impacted by and can contribute to the solution of climate action. What else more than energy can contribute to that solutions? That is why we consider this Solar Plus initiative extraordinarily important. We are so happy to be collaborating with Climate Works Foundation and all the colleagues who are here who can contribute to these important actions. I especially would like to thank my friend and colleague, Chauha, who have been working inside the United Nations, outside the United Nations, but promoting the same cause. Really, it's a pleasure. And of course, my colleague Hongpen from ESCAP, it's our sort of dear friend and colleagues in the UN Energy. We have been tirelessly promoting SDG 7, and now where we are, and we need to keep pushing. Of course, up to 2030, we have 6 years to go. This is a time that we need to step up to drive this action. In order to drive action and get the results by 2030, get SDG 7 done, we need a lot of solutions. We need solar solutions. Of course, we need a lot more climate finance to drive energy transition to go forward, including just inclusive, equitable transitions, very much so. So I hope that this conversation will stimulate us and illustrate more examples moving forward. So we'll be able to sort of get on to the job that we need to do on the ground as well. So I join all the colleagues to congratulate you to get started on this one and welcome this conversation. Look forward to working together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Minoru. Thank you for those opening remarks. And even though they're brief, you highlighted a few issues. One is that we're just 6 years to go to countdown. That's 6 years. A matter of months now, and we need to ask ourselves, are we likely to hit our targets? And what do we have to do in terms of redoubling efforts to reach those targets? You spoke about SDG 7, but more importantly, you spoke about the need for private finance. This is not a transition. This is not a trajectory that we're going to achieve 100% by public funds. And so we need to understand, how do we bring in private capital? How do we bring in private innovation to drive this trajectory forward? Without further ado, I'd love to invite to the podium now Surabi Menon. Surabi is the Vice President of Global Intelligence at Climate Works for some remarks. Surabi, please, you're very welcome.
So distinguished guests, colleagues and partners, I hope you can hear me. So I'm honored to welcome you all today to this critical discussion on scaling up decentralized solar in order to do the leapfrogging that we need in much of the global south. So this gathering at the SDG Pavilion is at a very pivotal time as we're working on a global commitment to triple global renewable energy capacity while also advancing SDGs. So decentralized solar energy is a very powerful solution, as you all know, that can address multiple challenges that we are all facing in society. IPCC has recognized solar to have the largest technical potential of all energy sources. It's a solution that exists today that can help transform many of the communities across the global south, and especially with solar costs going down and efficiency going up every year, this is the right time for us to really go full form ahead with tripling of renewable energy. Now, in this particular case, we're talking about decentralized solar energy or solar plus system, which can address many of the different challenges, from expanding energy access across different communities to also reducing carbon and helping economic growth and building community resilience. So these are important goals for climate, but also for the economic well-being of society. What we know is that we do need affordable energy sources for more than 785 million people across the world who still lack energy access. And then there's also 2.6 billion, a much larger number, who really don't have access to the grid. So there is a big gap, and there is a lot of investment needed, and this is where we can really go go ahead with decentralized solar projects. So off-grid renewables right now represent only about 1% of overall finance currently in many of the developing countries, and the investment need to achieve this SDG 7 is of an order magnitude greater than what we have annually for decentralized solar. So bridging this knowledge gap is essential to mitigate the gap in many of the developing countries to scale solar plus. And some of the solutions that we think exist are ways that we can transfer knowledge in applicable technologies and scenarios for decentralized solar. How can we share experiences in promoting and enabling policies and regulations? And then what are the best practices and support to build up innovative business models that can really accelerate the growth? And in all of this, we have to do this very quickly. We have, as Jide said, we have 6 years to achieve the goal. So we really need to scale up available resources and manage any kind of risks when we're trying to do the scale. What we do know is Solar Plus is gaining momentum on the international agenda. In many countries, we are trying to continue building on ways to integrate decentralized solar into national electrification plans and integrate it into energy transition plans. So this is the right time to build all of our collective work. The World Bank and the AFDB, the African Development Bank, have a joint commitment to provide electricity to 300 million people in Africa, with decentralized solar playing one of the major roles, a primary implementation pathway. And then China has also launched the Africa Solar Belt program last year, committing 13.7 million to solar regions, not just to solar projects in regions that are not being served with power grids in Africa. So ClimateWorks, our foundation, many of us are here, is very committed to scaling up our work on clean energy transition in many of the developing countries, aligned with their climate and energy priorities. So to do this, we are extremely delighted to have this partnership with UN DESA, where we will be launching a series of high-level dialogues, roundtables, capacity-building initiatives, as well as knowledge products. This marks a key step for us to build these successful Solar Plus practices and to look at ways we could energize and sort of scale it up in a much faster manner. And so in these coming months, we will try to deepen our engagement in key countries and regions, working closely with international and local stakeholders, and look to make sure we deep dive to make within local regions in order to understand local circumstances when we tailor the solutions. So the path to tripling renewable energy requires bold action, and this dialogue here is very useful for us to look at the insights and look at solutions that can emerge to take us to the next steps. So thank you and welcome, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Surabi. Thank you for those, sort of insightful comments. And I'll just take a few of the things you've said. And, you mentioned that on a levelized cost basis, that renewable energy is trending as the lowest cost energy. And so we must ask ourselves, from a purely business viewpoint, what are the bottlenecks that are stopping the ramp up of renewable energy? And that's anything from the usual suspects in emerging markets, everything from the policy environment to the legacy issues of incumbents to the structure of the electricity industry, to the level of anything from the level of privatization to data and analytics. We consistently see that there's an insufficiency of country level data, to capital constraints. And when we talk about capital, it's not just the availability of capital, but also the structure of capital, debt versus equity, etc. And this becomes even more, highlighted when we talk about developing economies. So Rabi talked about the need to transfer knowledge and knowledge share. And thank you for spotlighting, the efforts of the ADB and the Africa Solar Belt Program. Thank you so much. As we move into our discussion, our panelists, we're going to hear a lot more about these particular thematics and particular issues, and we're going to really do it justice this afternoon. So I would like to call upon our panelists, starting from Mr. Wang Wikwan, Deputy Secretary General of CREA, Chinese Renewable Energy Industry Association. He would be so kind to join us. You're very welcome. A round of applause, please. Ms. Sonia Dunlop, CEO of Global Solar Council. Sonia, great to see you again. Please, a round of applause for Sonia. Yes. Sorry. Oh, my apologies. My apologies. So we're not yet ready for the panel. I think it's the keynote speech first. My apologies. My bad. So please, I will hand over the podium for your speech. Please, another round of applause, please.
Okay,
thank you so much.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm Wang Yuquan from Chinese Renewable Energy Industry Association. I'm very glad to be here to share something with you about the Solar Plus. Yeah. Basically, I will introduce the 4 parts. The first is about the current status, then foundations of Solar Plus, and then some scenarios. Finally, some prospects. Yeah, as we all know, during the past 2 decades, the PV globally increasing very quickly. You can see not only the installed capacity, but also the percentage of the power mix is also increasing quickly, especially in Netherlands, Spain, Germany, and Italy. The proportion of PV power generation is over 10%. However, for the tripling target by 2030 for solar PV in the future, there are still many obstacles, bottlenecks to be overcome, and Solar Plus can be one of the effective solutions for those barriers. For example, Solar Plus can reduce the cost, can reduce the impact or challenge for renewables to the power grid, and also can increase the flexibility of solar projects, because we can use the solar power by the end users directly. It means the power generated by solar PV cannot be integrated to the power grid. It can be directly by the end users. So in this way, we can reduce the impact of solar PV to the power grid. Furthermore, Solar Plus project can produce more benefit. You can see here, it can promote it can be promotes the progress in achieving the climate goals. It can create more jobs. It can elevate the poverty. It can boost boom the local economy, etc. And also it can improve the health of local people. It can realize gender equality, etc. And on the other hand, now we have some foundation to set up Solar Plus projects. You know, during the past 2 decades, the cost of PV is decreasing very quickly. Now, in some countries, it is less than the cost is less than the coal-fired power projects, and also the business model is becoming more and more mature. It means it can be commercialized, and the investors and the users can benefit from it. And thirdly, the DC technology, the direct current technology, especially for the electronic equipment, has been improved so much. And lastly, the big data technology, the cloud calculation technology, and even the AI, artificial intelligence, can help us to reduce the O&M cost of solar projects. And so far, there are some application scenarios for solar plus projects. You can see here the solar project can be combined with the production, can be combined with the buildings, with the transportation, and together with agriculture, and with the fishery, etc. And here are some specific cases of the solar plus projects. Yeah, in China, we began to do solar plus projects since last century, since 1997. We have done the Brighter program and the Golden Sun program, etc. And we set up a lot of solar plus projects in remote and rural areas. And through this kind of projects, we can supply the power for local people. We can improve the production of local people, etc. And similarly, in other countries, especially in African continent and Southeast Asia and Latin America, etc., many people have no access to electricity now. So by the Solar Plus project, we can supply the clean energy to them. We can help them to improve their agricultural production, and we can improve the health for local people, and we can improve the health of local people, and improve the agricultural production, etc. You can see here we can use the solar PV project together with the water pump, the refrigerator, and air conditioning and lighting, etc. For example, we use the solar plus and refrigerator technology to store the vaccine and medicine in remote area. And in this way, we can ensure the health of local people. And here is another example about solar plus agriculture. And under the ground, we set up the solar projects, and under the solar panels, we can plant the crops. And in this way, the farmers can earn more money. It means the farmers can get money from the crops as well as from the power generation. And what is most important is that we can make a full use of the land area, because in the future, the land area will be one of the key obstacles for solar PV projects, because in many countries the land resource is limited. We don't have enough land to set up solar PV. And this case is about a solar fishery. And the solar panels will be set above the water area, and underneath you can raise the fish, crab, and some other animals. And in this way, we can make full use of the water area, and the farmers can earn money from both the seafood and the solar panels. And here is an example of the combination of solar PV and transportation. And we can set up the solar projects alongside the highway and on the top of the stations and on the top of the service centers, etc. And in this way, we can improve the economic benefits, and also we can reduce the cost of transportation. However, for the scaling up of solar plus projects, we are still facing many problems to be overcome. So in the future, we should strengthen the policy support. For example, we should give the subsidies or tax reduction, etc. And secondly, we should make innovation about technology, about the financing models. It means we should give long-term and low-interest financing for solar plus projects, and to reduce the cost and to make the project more bankable. And thirdly, we should enhance the technology applicability locally. It means we should make more progress in the technology so that more technology can be used in remote and rural area, and the technology should be more suitable for local people. And lastly, but not the least, is that we should strengthen the communication and cooperation between different countries, because in different countries the situation is also very different. We should make a decision. We should make the solar plus project according to the real situation in different countries. So that's why we come here. We discuss what we can do in the future, what we can work together in the future. And basically, that's my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wang Wikwan. Thank you so much for those comments, for those insights. I was particularly taken by one of your earlier slides, which just talked about, off-grid, and just in terms of the different parameters that makes it very attractive, including the cost. The fact that, you're cutting out the transmission side, so you're dropping costs. And let's not underestimate, sort of the component of cost that's just on the transmission side, plus your transmission losses. So, that's well taken. And also the grid uses, the fact that it's very land intensive, and so you're conserving land, and then just the flexibility. You tend not to have an oversupply of load. So thank you very much for raising those points. I think it's important to understand that even though Korea is essentially a Chinese entity, we want to thank you for your leadership, for reaching out to other sort of renewable associations in the global south. So I know you do work in Africa, I know you do work in different parts of the world, and I think you deserve a round of applause for all the work you're doing. It's not restricted to China. So thank you so much. Thank you. Next we will be calling in quick order Sonia Dunlop, the CEO of the Global Solar Council. Sonia, great. The floor is yours. Thank you. Round of applause, everyone.
Thank you so much, Jide. Thank you so much to CREA, to UN DESA, to Climate Works, and to everyone that organised this event. Thank you to CREA and to Ms. Dan Lee from CREA for inviting me. It really is a pleasure to be here. My name is Sonia Dunlop. I am the CEO of the Global Solar Council. We are the Global Solar PV Industry Association, representing the whole of the world's solar PV industry in every region of the world. That includes China, Africa, the whole of Asia, Europe, North America, Latin America and the Caribbean, Australasia, Southeast Asia, and everything in between. We bring together the whole of the solar industry to work on everything from off-grid and distributed generation solar and small-scale solar, which is what we're talking about today, all the way to the biggest solar farms in the world, the 5 gigawatt solar farms that are being built. And we are really on the cusp of a solar revolution, right? Because we are really seeing an exponential growth in global solar deployment, and it is solar, and particularly distributed generation solar, particularly solar plus applications, that is going to keep us to 2 degrees of global warming and going to be able to implement the Paris Agreement. It is everything that China has achieved in terms of bringing down the cost of solar that is going to get us to our climate goals and nothing else. We are the central energy technology. So I just want to say a few words to add to what the previous speakers from CREA, from Climate Works, from UN DESA have already said. And just talk about how solar and solar plus projects, small scale, distributed generation, behind the meter, rooftop and applied solar in all its versatility, how it can also bring immense just transition to the energy transition and bring resilience to electricity systems. Because we have to accept that a certain amount of climate impacts are already baked in. We have to start adapting to climate impacts. We have to invest in adaptation and resilience. And we, as a distributed energy technology, can really contribute to the resilience of electricity systems, resilience to hurricanes, resilience to big natural disasters, resilience to floods, and that we can help with that as well. So a few words first about the Global Solar Council. We are the Global Solar PV Industry Association, and our mission is to unite the whole of the global energy transition towards a new solar energy transition. And our vision is a fair and sustainable world with solar at the heart of its new energy economy. Next year, the Paris Agreement will be celebrating its 10th birthday. And we as the Global Solar Council will also be celebrating our 10th birthday, because we were founded in Paris at the Paris COP to deliver the energy transition, and what a ride we've been on the last 10 years. Our members are national solar energy associations and solar companies from all over the world. We represent the national industry associations of many, many countries across the global south. You can see there India, China, Taiwan, Italy, Africa, South Africa, and many, many more that are represented there, as well as Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, and many more. So we really do bring together the whole of the global solar industry. We work with key partners all over the world. We are part of the Global Renewables Alliance. We are the key partner on solar for the International Renewable Energy Agency, the key partner for the International Energy Agency, the International Solar Alliance, REN 21, the Solar Stewardship Initiative, and many more. And as you can see, we are constantly working to represent solar at the highest levels of global energy diplomacy, and the G20 and the G7 as well. We have a totally global team based all over the world to help you and help us bring the message of solar to different parts of the world, and work with them and through that team to really deliver the vision of solar. This is what I was talking about, how we are seeing exponential growth. We are all used to seeing the hockey stick of CO2 emissions. We are now seeing a new hockey stick, which is the solar hockey stick of growth, of solar deployment around the world. As you can see, from 2022 to 2023, we saw an almost doubling of solar thanks to huge growth in the Chinese market. And we expect that this year in 2024, we are going to see a total of almost 600 gigawatts of solar. And indeed, just before preparing for Baku, we reached the huge milestone of 2 terawatts of solar installed around the world. We have a huge party to celebrate this at the Global Renewables Alliance Pavilion just over there on Friday night at 5:30. Solar is the cheapest electricity in history and getting cheaper. The Economist said it as well. We are seeing the dawn of the solar age. And what they specifically said is that because solar is constantly reducing the levelized cost of electricity across the board, that we can now do things with solar that we never thought possible before, and that is just what Solar Plus is about. As you can see, we are the leading renewable technology in terms of deployment and really kind of working in partnership with the other technologies in order to deliver a 100% renewables future. In terms of finance, and we really see this, and this is not just from big investment funds, this is also local people putting their own money from their own savings into solar in their farms and into their houses. But we know that this year we are expecting $500 billion, so $500 billion to be invested in solar, and a lot of that is in distributed generation and different applications of solar. So just a few words. We know there are about 5 to 7 million jobs of for solar workers worldwide, and a lot of them are in the installation of distributed generation. It is a very jobs-rich technology that requires a lot of human hands to install all of those solar panels. And so this is a really important understanding that when you invest in solar in your community, you're investing in local jobs, local installation jobs, upskilling in order to make that happen. It requires a huge amount of manual labor. It requires local roofers and electricians to upskill, local agricultural workers as well. And so this is really a huge part of the just transition in terms of global employment, as well as making sure that we can power our development in a sustainable way. And as I said, it's also in big part a contributor to resilience to climate impacts by providing backup to the grid in times of blackouts, by providing off-grid energy access through mini-grids, through solar home systems, and through small solar light systems that can sometimes only be this big. I have some on my desk at home that provide light and a mobile charger to people who need it wherever they need it, showing again how versatile it is. We can also provide services to grids in new and different ways, more accurately, more quickly, and in a more innovative way that can be operated as virtual power plants, providing frequency control or grid forming services and black start services. And these are our recommendations about how to really unleash this, to encourage solar PV deployment across all market segments, to streamline permitting schemes, especially for distributed generation, where in some countries it is almost illegal to install distributed solar, and where it is sometimes very difficult to get the requisite permits. To ensure finance flows to that distributed generation, we are working in particular, and we want to work more on getting multilateral development finance from the World Bank to flow down to small-scale generation, distributed generation around the world through financial intermediaries, through microfinance providers. We need to adopt ESG practices based on global standards and multi-stakeholder initiatives such as the Solar Stewardship Initiative, unleash a flexibility revolution by harnessing the power of storage and nurturing the development of solar skills with our Global Solar Training Standards Initiative. This, as I mentioned, is the Solar Stewardship Initiative, a really important part of raising the ESG standards in solar around the world to make ourselves a really mature technology that can potentially power so much of the world's electricity needs. And these are just some more examples of what we are doing at the Global Solar Council in order to bring the data and the analysis to the people who need it most in order to erase those last barriers to solar deployment. And this is some of the work we do, policy and advocacy work, standard setting work, and of course, most importantly, building those connections and joining the dots from one part of the world to the other. So I just want to say a little bit more about our finance work, because this is really important. We want to make sure that low-cost finance is going to all of these solar plus technologies around the world, whether it be solar water pumps, transport solutions, including shipping, including cars potentially one day, agricultural solutions, fisheries, and so much more. We need low-cost finance to go to these projects. And just a great example of that is actually a health centre in Sierra Leone, a maternity centre where babies were being born, but there wasn't enough power to power the incubators and the ventilators that were needed to keep these newborn premature babies alive. And they got low-cost finance from a crowdsourcing campaign. It doesn't always have to be big institutions. They invested in solar and storage, and now more of those premature newborn babies are surviving thanks to that. As I said, we're doing our skills and training work with the Global Solar Training Standards Initiative to make sure that people across the developing world are properly trained. And then our grid work, where we are really trying to prove how we can be a service provider to grids, as well as the need to make sure that we have enough capacity to connect to the grid. Thank you very much. And if you have any more questions on any of this work or anything more, just let me know. I just want to say that this has different names in different parts of the world. Sometimes it's called prosumers, sometimes they're called self-consumers, sometimes they're called solar and island mode. But what brings us together is the power of solar to empower people and families to take control of their energy bills, to find new applications and versatile applications, and to really power a whole new wave of economic development around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for your interventions. And, you always speak with passion. You always speak with conviction. You always speak with your facts. And so we thank you for that. And I was taken by a few of your graphics, just understanding just where we are on solar as a ratio. 78% of renewables out there and solar ramping up with 500 million investments, US dollars of investments. But that's nowhere near the full amount we require to actually drive this revolution. And so as we talked about in earlier interventions, we really need to look at a way of catalyzing and mobilizing other aspects of capital. You spoke about sort of the different uses, and one is grid backup, but also simply areas that it's just not cost effective. You're simply not going to run grids there. Already with a lot of emerging markets, you have the subsidized cost of energy. And so therefore, you will not be able to continue to extend this unless you actually look at sort of more technological solutions. You talked about, sort of the nexus again of standards. And I like that you mentioned that, a lot of areas, you just have to standardize. You don't have fully industry standards, MEPs. And then, of course, the nexus of standards, finance, and policy. And I think we're going to hear this as a recurring decimal, where does the policy meet the finance, etc. So, thank you so much again. And another round of applause for Sonia. Thank you. And now we've heard from the industries. We've heard from the industry associations. We've heard from the manufacturers. We've heard from Korea. I think it's now time to turn ourselves over to academia. And without further ado, I will introduce Mr. Wee Quimpeng, a professor from Tsinghua University. Mr. Quimpeng, please, your comments. You're very welcome.
Thank you very much. And it's my great pleasure to be here. And I will use 8 to 10 minutes just to introduce our thinking and what we have done in In terms of so-called PV plus, actually we just try to use electricity generated from photovoltaic properly, efficiently, and wisely. So I think that will be very suitable for the topic of today. So we call it a bottom-up approach for net zero operation, especially for buildings and communities in the future. So I will show some case study, and actually we start this kind of thinking or this kind of actions from a demonstration project initiated 4 years ago in the beginning of 2020. And at that time in Qingdao, there's a community contains 10 different types of buildings, and they try to achieve net zero operation. At that time, the carbon dioxide consumption intensity is about 52 kilogram carbon dioxide per square meter per year, and the target is to try to reduce 75% in 3 years. But actually, I would like to say, frankly, we a little bit failed. Nowadays, the carbon dioxide emission intensity is half, so not 75%, but half. How we can do that? We try to enhance or to increase the inner performance of buildings, to have a better insulation and to enhance air tightness and to reduce heating demand. Meanwhile, we know that in this kind of seaside cities like here, they do need dehumidification and cooling for almost 3-4 months, and how we can make this kind of cooling be so-called net zero, and we try to combine high efficiency cooling system with photovoltaic. So at that time, the buildings on the roof of the buildings, they have PV panels, but the operators do not want to use that because they believe that the unstable of this kind of decentralized photovoltaic will be do harm to the buildings, to the systems. So they say just cut off. And then we walk in and discuss with them, and we install some kind of a control system and to use the electricity generated from a PV panel wisely and safely, and they have any feeling that where the electricity comes from. They just to use them stably and with any concern. So after that, they believe, okay, this kind of system can work together with the existing MEP system in buildings. Even there are some very important conference, including some energy minister conference in the buildings. At that time, the conference, the whole system, the whole buildings will be supplied by the electricity generator there. So the idea is to, like you just mentioned, Sonia, that it's a per consumer and to use it wisely. So after that, we think, why not to install the photovoltaic and to use them and just reduce by expensive electricity from grid. So grid may be a little bit, not very happy with that, but the building owner and building operator will be very happy to use their electricity or use the photovoltaic wisely. So we believe that this kind of things can work very, very, easily with cooling system. That's why we come here, because we talk about global south, because we do need this kind of cooling, and we all know that if we have more solar gains in the building, so we need more coolings, and at that time we also can produce more electricity from photovoltaic. So naturally, this kind of PV panels can work in harmony with cooling systems in buildings, and also with some kind of refrigeration or some kind of fresh, they all need this kind of cooling. So that we believe to use a photovoltaic together with a high efficiency cooling system could be a very good, very wisely a solution to use that. So we have this kind of building not integrated with PV, but under PV, and to use DC driven chiller. That means we eliminate the transmitter. So that we use the electricity generated from PV DC and directly to the compressor of a chiller. The compressor of the chiller have a VSD, variable speed driver, and they can use both AC and DC. So according to our test, not only in experiment, not only in the lab, but also on site, we found that they can save some kind of 15% of this kind of electricity. Think of that before, because of the expensive, the high price of the electricity from the grid or the unstable from the grid, we cannot use this kind of cooling, air conditioning or for refrigerator anyway. But now we have this kind of DC-driven compressors for refrigerators, for chillers, and even for pumps and fans. So that's what we imagine that in this building, if we could have photovoltaic and generated electricity and be used, consumed by ventilation, by compressors, so that's very easy. So make the system as simple as possible. So from then on, we call this PV plus energy storage, because we do need this kind of a storage system and to use them DC and to increase the flexibility that we believe is the other side of the coin, concern with resilience. So we have more flexibility, maybe we could have more resilience. So we have PV, we have a storage, we use this wisely and efficiently. Maybe that will be for the future, for this kind of PV plus. So from then on, more and more buildings and systems to use this kind of systems and to as a demonstration. And why people want to have that? Because they save money. So very easy to understand if you sell the electricity generated from your roof, from the panels, but with very low price. Very low price. I would like to say, frankly, very low price. But the grid will sell electricity to you, extra some kind of 50%, some kind of extra price. So that's why we encourage people to install PV and use them themselves. So that's the big challenge, because they only have 1 meter at this time. So nowadays we want to have 2 meter or to use 1 meter as a two-way gateway. So they can calculate or to meter the electricity generated from photovoltaic, and also to to reduce the cost or the tariff from the grid. So that's why we encourage them, and more buildings, and some others they use beam, they use AI digitalization, because it's very complicated. But we try to make it simple, as easy as electricity EV. So EV nowadays EV. Electricity DC building, so with digital control systems and optimization and something like that. And then we encourage even airport to install photovoltaic and to generate and to use them in the airport. So because in the airport they have a lot of space, and they can see the sun, they can generate electricity, but they were hesitate to use them because they don't believe. And from this kind of case study, people believe that they can use them wisely. However, obviously there are some kind of a variation, very violent, this kind of a variation, and we can do it by simulation. So we can predict this kind of things before the building or the system was installed, and even during the operation, we can use this kind of AI-aided prediction method, and to also use some kind of summer storage, not only battery but also summer storage. So that because of this kind of cooling can be also working very harmony with the photovoltaic, because in summer they always need this kind of cooling, and the PV can generate more electricity. So that's why. But also we do need to deal the problem in April or some kind of, in spring or in autumn, because at that time you do not need so much cooling. So where we can use the electricity, we work together with EV. So charge the cars and the other things. Even we try to charge the vehicles in the airport, and they can also charge to the aircraft in the future. So I just summarize here, and to use this kind of summer storage as to eliminate this kind of difference between produce and production and supply. So the last page. So some other things, the last page. Then we believe from this kind of application, and people can design and can use AI technology wisely, then that can make this kind of photovoltaic plus even cheaper for operation, for construction, and to use them wisely. So that's what our idea. And in the future, I think, especially for global south, and they need cooling, obviously, and they have solar, then we can do it. Yes, that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the interventions, and for your insights on the bottom-up approach. And we are quite impressed with the energy efficiency and driving. By saying that you're going to drop by 75% over 3 years. I think what that shows is that the technology is there, the ability to actually deploy those technologies is there. And I just want to take that back to the previous discussions that we talked about, performance specifically on energy standards, MEPS, and then on cooling. Because as you mentioned, as of today, cooling is about 20% of our entire energy demand. And that's trending upwards over the next 3 decades. Therefore, to continue to solve this problem will help us greatly in achieving our targets. So we thank you very much for what you and the university are doing. And another round of applause for academia. Thank you. And the way you speak so passionately, just getting graphs and sign charts for those of us that are not scientists to make it look so attractive, and we can actually see what it's driving to. Thank you so very much. We will now move on to our panel discussion, and I just want to frame it a little bit so that we understand what this particular section. So we're talking about how do stakeholders cooperate in Solar Plus, the project future, and that includes what are the best practices and how can these be adapted to particular regions and countries. And then finally, we'll talk about the barriers. I think we hearkened to some of these a little bit earlier, but what are the barriers that we have in terms of achieving this? And so our distinguished panelists today are drawn from different parts of industry, society, etc. And we will start with Mr. Liu Hongpen, Director of the Energy Division for UNESCO. If you would care to join us on the panel. You're very welcome, sir. Please. Also on our panel, we have Mr. Fabi Tumiwa, who's the Executive Director of the Institute for Essential Services Reform. You're very welcome. We have Mr. Zhang Weiyin, Special Assistant to the President and Head of Strategic Marketing at LONGi Hydrogen. Very welcome. And Ms. Ji Lin, Senior Climate Change Officer at the ADB, Asian Development Bank. Mr. Thank you. Excellent. So it's a panel discussion. I will, if we have a mic, I will sit down and... Excellent, thank you. Can everybody hear me? Perfect. I'm not often accused of being quiet, so thank you. I'm glad you can hear me. And I think our first question, without much ado, will be to Liu Hongpen, the Director of Energy Division of UNESCO. And I think we'd like to ask, how do you introduce the roles of effective Solar Plus models and projects for increasing domestic energy supply, power access, and the quality of life in your particular area? And feel free to, if you want to use Asia Pacific or any area you're comfortable with, please go ahead. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Jet. Thank you for this opportunity to just, I think, learn about this Solar Plus concept and also the initiative. I think, as the previous speaker said, that there's a great potential for solar technology to achieve SDG 7 and also net zero. So take Asia Pacific as an example. So currently we have still 50 million population without access to electricity. So although we achieved greatly for last 2 decades, but now still 50 million, this will be the last mile. It's very, very much difficult the last mile access. But most of those 50 million could be, I think, a potential for solar, to decentralize the solar to support electricity access. But more difficult part is also the clean cooking. People talk about energy access, mostly talk about electrification. But clean cooking is another big challenge. And globally, there's a 2 billion population without access to clean cooking, but 1.2 billion is located in Asian Pacific. And the solar plus, I also see there's a good opportunities to contribute to not only for electricity, but also for clean cooking. The technology actually is available. Like use the solar home system plus storage. And then that will have electricity for clean cooking. There's also already pilot in Africa. We also have a pilot in Asia Pacific to do this. So the challenge is how you scale up this, because the cost and also the technology reliability. And as the previous speaker just mentioned about the buildings, I think in the building sector, as a prosumer, as Sonia also mentioned, the producer and the consumer, you combine this together, solar roof will be most appropriate technology, especially for decentralized. In Southeast Asia, actually, we are doing with some of the countries in Southeast Asia to support the passive cooling pilot. The passive cooling is mostly use the existing technology, but you put this integrated together and even use the solar thermal and also solar PV technology. So that is also great potential, I think, for a lot of South countries, like especially in developing areas, those the temperatures, you need the cooling systems almost all year round, like in Southeast Asia, we're doing now. And I really think that's a great potential for Solar Plus, and also with the existing technology, South-South cooperation will have good opportunities to contribute to this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And those are very insightful comments. I just wanted to make, just draw on something that you've said and just spotlight that for the audience. So, you mentioned just the sheer number of people that do not have access to clean cooking. And that figure is 3 billion globally, 3 billion, mostly in developing markets. But you see, a lot of the times when you hear the story about clean cooking, a lot of the substitution is that people are looking at, putting in gas as a transition fuel for clean cooking. There are technologies that exist that enable us to leapfrog that gas pipeline and go straight to electrification. So we thank you for spotlighting that. I think it's a very key point that we should talk about. And also just, passive cooling. And again, we dovetail to the discussion we had a little bit earlier on standards and standardization. Very key that we have uniform standards across different regimes, and it enables us to deploy very quickly. So thank you so much for those interventions. Thank you. We will move over to Fabi Tumiwa, the Executive Director for the Institute of Essential Services Reform. And we'll talk a little bit about Indonesia. Indonesia you have your ambitious targets for 2050, and you have one of the most, you're one of the most important pathways to supply. So I think our question for you is, are there specific policies and mechanisms or applications that you're looking at introducing in Indonesia for Solar Plus? The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, I have to be honest that if you look at Indonesia and the Southeast Asia region, I don't think we have developed our solar potentials. I think we are. If you look at the capacity, the installations, Indonesia is lagging behind other countries, and I think I have explanations to it. Well, first, like Indonesia, we are rich with fossil fuel. We are rich with coal, oil, and natural gas. And in our energy policies, only focus on to utilize these fossil fuel resources. But also, and this is very important, as solar technology become cheaper, because I think every government think about how to provide electricity access affordably for the citizens, right? So as solar become cheaper, the government and utilities try to integrate the utilization of more solar. So we have seen this in the last 10 years that solar start to emerge. And in the past, solar PV is used as a means for increasing electricity access. So if you look at Indonesia, we have 280 million population, but we have 17,000 islands. And the populations is spread all over this country. Some really live in the remote area that grid cannot access. And even providing grid access electricity to this remote area, remote village, remote population are very, very expensive. I think it costs between $5,000 to like $20,000 per connection. So obviously, distributed renewable energy technology like solar is become the solutions. But again, I think in the past, for different because of different factors, it's not really successful. And part of that because low maintenance and operation capacities, I think, and keep the technologies that being used in the past, for instance, like battery is not that right. But recently, the government see this as a potential. So the application for rooftop solar, for instance, now become quite common. And 2018, the government issue a regulation that allow rooftop solar. Now you see that rooftop solar increase, although the regulation keep changing. But we now allowed to install rooftop solar. Before 2018, if you install rooftop solar, you will go to jail in Indonesia, yes, because our law. But then the government said, okay, you can install rooftop solar. Now it's become practice, and I do believe that within this year, maybe we can reach rooftop solar installation close to 1 gigawatt. Right, so it's a big progress for Indonesia in the last few years. The other thing that we also, so the government allowed that. So now it's very important development with the rooftop solar because the utilities not allow us to use net metering scheme anymore for the rooftop solar user. In the past, when the government first introduced the rooftop solar, any excess capacity you can send to the grid uses this net metering. But for several reasons, the utility they don't think that is good for them. So the regulation that came this year saying that you cannot export your excess capacity. What happened is that because storage technology is now getting cheaper and cheaper, some of these owner of rooftop PV in the urban area start to install battery storage, right? And very interestingly, with it's open for more applications. Like for instance, potential for virtual power plant, but although it's not there yet in Indonesia in terms of regulation, but they could open for other possibilities. So these two, this trend is actually mark the solar development in Indonesia. So how about this off-grid one for the remote areas? Well, the lesson learned from rural electrification projects that based on solar tell that it's not sustainable if you only provide the electricity using solar only for lighting. Simple appliances. Because the demand of electricity keep increasing when you have the access. So now what the government is doing is that a number of solar plan for remote area has to be able to serve the productive use of electricity. So different kind of use, and if it is like single individual installation, So it has to be, increase the capacity so they can use more than just lightning, because the standard practice in the past is just for lightning, right? So that's I think importance, and as the energy storage battery become cheaper, I think the wider applications also and more economical application for rural electrification based on solar. So, and the other one that the final thing I want to say is that this kind of a solar plus application for productive use, you also see that in the fishery sectors, for the shrimp pond and others, and some application in the agriculture. I think, including it started like hydroponic power by solar, right? But it's all related to economic activities and productive use of solar. I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, and that was very insightful. I think sort of my takeaways from your submission. Well, I think the key one, the opening, is that we have to understand that resource-rich countries like Indonesia, there are a lot of resource-rich countries out there who are net exporters of fossil fuels, or who have a lot of fossil fuels. And there's a very different narrative from the net importers of these products. For some, if you're importing fossil fuels, then it's an easy sort of switch, and you're basically switching this out, and you're sort of, and that's immediately to your bottom line. You're saving yourself in importation duties, importation costs, etc., and potential subsidies. But for net producers, it's a very, very different narrative. So I'm very glad to hear the case of a country like Indonesia. Second of all, we talked about this a little bit earlier, which is just that as a mechanism, just geographically, when you have multiple islands, you're not going to be able, just grid-wise, it just makes sense to have DRE on grid. And then you mentioned policy. And I didn't even know this, so thank you for that insight, that you couldn't even put up until 2018, you couldn't even install rooftop solar. So the evolution of sort of everything from feed-in tariffs to net metering, etc., are things that are policy-driven, policy drivers that we need to put in place. So we thank you for those highlights. Moving on to our penultimate panelist, we will move on to Mr. Zhang Weiyin, who's a special assistant to the president and the head of strategic marketing at LONGi. And the question for you is, you're one of the biggest solar manufacturers in the world, and I know most of us know about LONGi, and you've put in a lot of efforts in solar storage and solar hydrogen. So it would be great to hear a little bit about your work and your market outlook, and just your application. So just basically a little bit more about you. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm working for LONGi Hydrogen. So LONGi Hydrogen of LONGi, founded in 2021, and I'd like to share perspective on green hydrogen topic plus solar power. So as you all know, LONGi is one of the most compelling solar power company in the world. Thanks to our continuous investment into technology, we had the cheapest and the best solar panel product in the world. And with the growing market and the decreasing cost, we see penetration level of solar power being continuously improving globally. At the same time, LONGi, our founder, is continuously thinking about two challenges. One is with the solar power continue to penetrate into the grid, it provides renewable energy at the same time pressure to the grid. So at the peak hours, the solar energy, the solar power cannot be fully utilized in some areas. So there's a waste on solar power. At the same time, if we look into the net zero, well, 6 years to go, right? So globally, there are 30% of carbon emissions are not able to be reduced with simply electrify the sector. For instance, the steel making, the chemical and refinery, and also for certain cement making industries, these are not able to be decarbonized because it's not simply electrifying the process. So the only way you are going to do is to change the gray hydrogen that they're using now into green hydrogen. And for some other like steel making industries, you are going to change the process using green hydrogen to reduce carbon emission. So that is something in the mind that we have to utilize green hydrogen to achieve the net zero goal in these 30% of, we say, industrial sectors, as well as long distance transportation as well to the ocean and also the aviation fuel. So at that point, LONGi started to invest ourselves into green hydrogen sector, starting from 2021. And there's a key element there is to how you convert the green energy into green hydrogen. So you need to have this water electrolyzer. So you have to have the best water electrolyzer to have the lowest cost in capex and to have the best efficiency. That has to be large scale and has to be reliable and safe. So that's where LONGi come from to get into green hydrogen industry. Starting from 2021, we have now supplied more than 300 megawatt green hydrogen electrolyzer system to the world. And we have signed 500 megawatt projects. So that's delivering. But still, if you look into the green hydrogen sector, it is still at the start point. More projects are kind of pilot projects that are trying to find the balance to demonstrate the technology and also to see how the economic goes. But luckily, we see several projects that are already able to get money from the project. For instance, there are steel makers. They can sell green steel to the car makers like Mercedes-Benz or Audi for the premium cars. They can get the money back from the end user. And for something else, they can produce green methanol that the transporters, they are able to afford the premium, that they can change from the original fossil fuel to green fuel. So we're looking that with the technology continues to advance, we will have a lower cost for the green hydrogen, and we will have a better affordability for the industries to use green hydrogen. At that time, we'll foresee more sectors, industrial sectors, will start to get into transition to green hydrogen, and we are getting accelerated curve to decarbonize these sectors. That's what I want to share with you. And I would like to send an invite to all of you. If you have a chance, please come to visit us in Xi'an and in China, and we'll show you the technology and also our projects in the green hydrogen sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I know time is fast, we're fast approaching time. So thank you so much for your submission, specifically on green hydrogen and its applications, specifically in the steel industry. And we look forward to, taking you up on your invitation. Our final panelist for today is Jilin, the Senior Climate Change Officer for Asian Development Bank. And the question to you is, we know what the ADB has done in terms of supporting renewable energy development in southern countries, and that extends to policy design. So we'd like to know, are there key findings that you've found in these countries, any barriers that you've come across with, and any models that you'd like to sort of to spotlight? I know that all good things must come to an end. Everybody's still excited, but if we may just sort of be a little bit more brief, and then we'll wrap up for the day. So thank you. The floor is yours.
Sure, thank you very much. I don't want to stand between you and dinner, so I'll be very brief. Actually echoing some of the panelists and also earlier speakers, there are a lot of obstacles in developing solar industries in Asia-Pacific region, although the potential is actually very huge. Some of the obstacles that we observe, including the high upfront costs, also the high financing costs of small-scale projects, etc. So ADB as a development finance institutions actually the strength actually to mobilize financial resources and market infrastructure to strengthen the sector in the region. I just want to highlight two of our efforts in our developing member countries. The first one is in Indonesia. We have in India. In India, we have a multi-tranche financing facility to support the development of rooftop solar in the country. By providing a $500 million US loan to the Indian government through a sovereign arrangement, we actually the project supports one of the national banks in Indonesia to provide on-landing resources to sub-projects of solar projects in India. So the bank has 6,700 branches across the nation. So being able to providing these on-landing projects will be able to quickly scale up the deployment of rooftop solar in the country. We also actually having a $5 million US of TA resources, the technical assistance, to strengthen the institutional arrangement and the capacity of the bank to access the credit risks of solar projects specifically. So helping the banks to enhance their capacities on reviewing the applications and credit line of these solar projects in rural areas of India. And the second project is actually in the Philippines, which is pretty new. We just approved it late last year. So the project in the Philippines providing a $100 million US loan to one of the energy companies in the Philippines. And in addition to that, we also provide $20 million US of the partial credit guarantee to one of the banks in the Philippines. Being able to having the bank in the Philippines to leveraging ADB's AAA credit resources to reduce their credit margin to its borrowers. So by that instruments, we actually leverage and unlock more resources from the private sector to support the solar development in the Philippines. So this is some of the efforts we have been doing. In China, we are also initiating a effort to actually summarizing some of the resources and experiences in China on solar PV plus. And so with an aim to actually replicate and further share with other ADB member countries to develop similar models for further replication. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for your submissions. Ladies and gentlemen, as we draw to a close, I'd just like to thank ADB, sort of for highlighting your different initiatives, especially the TA. I'm sure a lot of people don't know the technical assistance that banks actually extend that to the tune of $5 million. It's a significant amount, so we applaud you for that. Just in closing, I'll just wrap up by saying we've heard about the key roles that national governments should play in terms of policies. We've heard the roles of MDBs, multilateral development banks. We've heard from industry, philanthropy, CSOs. And we've also spoken about the drastically short timeline we have to 2030, our pivotal points. But the great thing is that we have all the stakeholders here in this room to make the difference. We have highlighted the different efforts that everybody is making. I think this is a watershed moment to redouble our efforts. Where it's never enough as we move towards our target. I'd like to give another hearty round of applause to our panelists. Thank you so much for your time. And then to yourselves, our audience, thank you for your patience. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you so much. Thank you.